Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got another new shell that we've never tested before. I believe it's one that's pretty new to the market, and I've had several requests to try it, and from what I've kind of seen and heard a little bit about these, they seem to be pretty decent, at least in 12 gauge anyway. I am working on getting some in 12 gauge as well, but we're working with the 20 gauge variant today, and we'll see what we can get, because this is a good brand. They make good shells. However, the specific type of loading we have can be very finicky to work with sometimes. So we're just gonna have to try it and see what happens. But for the shells I've got today, I picked up some of the Migra Hybrid turkey loads. These ones are a 20 gauge, 3-inch, 1.5 ounce payload of lead 5s stacked over top of TSS 9s, moving about 1,100 feet per second. And on the side here, it says we're getting about 341 pellets in the shell, 141 of which are lead, and about 200 of them are TSS. I'm sure that number varies a little bit on average, but this is a pretty interesting load for sure. We've tested these Migra shells in steel waterfowl stuff, which their blend waterfowl loads have been really good performers in our testing. We've also tested some of their 410 TSS turkey loads with some pretty okay results there as well. So maybe these might be a good option. I think these are $38 a box for 5 or so. So somewhere a little more expensive than lead and quite a bit cheaper than what a full-on TSS shell would be. But blend shells can be very particular. However, Migra seems to have figured it out pretty decently with their waterfowl stuff. So maybe we can continue that with these turkey loads as well. Before our setup today, I brought out the Stevens 301 20 gauge. It's got a vector red dot on top with a 26-inch barrel, and we're going to be running this choke. It's a Cabela's Blackmaxx. That's a 575 constriction. It's been a while since we brought this choke out, but it has shown us a number of incredible patterns so far in our testing, and it is a decently budget option as well. It does sit kind of right in the mid-price range. I think the last time I checked on these, they were $45 or something like that, and they're definitely worth it from what we've seen from them in 12 and 20 gauge. But with this being a 575, I figured we would start here. It's a little more open of a choke, since sometimes lead in a 20 gauge prefers a little more breathing room. So this is a decent starting point, and we can obviously get much tighter of a choke from here. So we'll see how this works out and kind of what direction we need to go with choke constriction. But for our test today, we're running everything the same as usual. The turkey target is set up at 40 yards, and we've got the chrono to get our velocity. So let's get you guys a view of that target. We'll take our shot, and we'll see what these Migra Hybrid TSS lead blend shells can actually do, and if they're worth anything, or if they're kind of going to be a little finicky, and who knows, maybe even terrible shells. I don't think that's going to be the case necessarily, but let's take our shot and see what we get for a starting point. Okay, that shell gave us 1,051 through the chrono. Lost claim is 1,100, so we are a little bit under that number. They probably tested it through a 28, or who knows, maybe even a 30-inch barrel at the factory to get that number. But still, 1,051 is perfectly fine out to 40 yards for a lead 5 and a TSS 9 from a 20 gauge. So did they actually pattern well or not? I don't know yet, so let's go check it out and see what we got. Okay, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and we see some pretty decent results, to be honest with you. I can already tell you, just without even looking up close at it, this is probably one of the better blend shells of lead and TSS that we've tested in quite some time. I don't think it's perfect yet. I think we've got some work to do. We'll discuss more about that here in a second, but immediately, it's not bad. Now, we did favor a touch to the right with this shot. That particular combo definitely seems to have favored to the right, because it's not what my red dot is zeroed with. But we still absolutely have a dead bird there. We covered that brain in pellets and got the top end of the spine there as well. And obviously, if we had that pattern centered up a little bit, it would still absolutely cover that bird's head and neck area for sure. So it does give you some leeway to work with, but there's a decent amount of shot right here as well. I tried to differentiate the size of circles that I drew. The bigger circles are going to be your lead 5s, the smaller circles are going to be your TSS 9s, and we have a decently even mixture of them as well. There's not really too many hot pockets of only TSS or only lead pellets, so it really is a perfectly usable turkey pattern. Now, moving in and looking at our core, which I think did favor a little to the right, it's pretty solid. We do have one pretty noticeable void right in the top right corner of that turkey target there where those words are. There is a little bit of a hole there, and maybe just off the top right corner there as well. It's a little thin, so it's not perfect, but there are plenty of pellets there in both shot sizes to do the job. Outside of that, it does give us a little bit of leeway to work with, but we do start getting a few splotches and a few little thin zones around the edges as well. Maybe a couple little straggly flyers down at the bottom, maybe a few little strings over here off the left, but it's not completely blown all over the place either. We definitely have the makings of a pretty even, pretty circular pattern. It's just not quite perfect yet. I think that 575 though was a really good starting point to work off of. Maybe we can go a touch tighter now, 570, 568, something like that. We'll see how it reacts. Maybe they might want a little more constriction to just bring it in a little bit more, or who knows, maybe we go to something like my stock choke, which is I think 582 or something like that for measurement. Maybe that might work out nicely. Either way you look at it though, even if we remove the TSS from the equation out of this shell, it's still not bad for lead in a 20 gauge either. That would be a usable 40-yard lead pattern as well in a 20 gauge. It wouldn't be overly impressive, but it would certainly do the job. So we've definitely got a good starting point to work off of here. If we can refine it just a little bit more, it's going to be a really nice performing combination. It is a little more expensive than a lead shell would be, but lead is pretty borderline from a 20 gauge once you get past 30 yards or so, and these aren't nearly as expensive as a full-on TSS load is either, so this might actually have a chance at being a decently intriguing option for that kind of mid-price range. This is already a decent pattern. I would absolutely hunt with this to 40 yards, but I'm also really looking forward to testing it through some other chokes and constrictions, because I think we can probably get a little bit better out of this. So one more close-up look for you guys so you can see what kind of spread we have and mixture between the pellet sizes, but that's a lot of pellets right behind that bird's head there that would have done the job, especially if we had it centered up a little bit better. So I was hoping to see some nice results here. I think we got some pretty nice results. I think that 575 was a pretty good call to start with, and now we can work from here and hopefully dial these in that little bit more and have a really nice performing load. So not a bad start at all for these new Migra Hybrid loads. And here's the wad from that shell. I believe this is one of those ballistic product wads. I think the 20 gauge version is called the TPS wad. They're pretty recognizable with these little holes down here at the bottom and the ribs up the side. We know these are a very nice performing wad. They've proven themselves to shoot well through just about anything you put them through, as long as the rest of the loading is somewhat respectable and not just completely junk. So with this wad and already seeing that performance, I have really high hopes that we're going to get some nice performances out of that shell the more we test it. So no major damage, nothing stuck down in there, everything looks good, and I'm really happy to see this wad loaded in these shells. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that result right there? That is a plenty usable enough pattern out to 40 yards in a 20 gauge. We've seen tremendously worse than that from most of the lead loads we've tested, and a lot of these stacked and blend loads and stuff like that are much more erratic and kind of scattered spread all over the paper. It's been rather tricky to get one to actually try and condense down, and we have that here for sure. We've got a decently even kind of circular pattern starting. It might have a couple little voids and a few little strings around the edge, but we're on the right track here. If we can just refine it a little bit, it's going to be hard to argue with. I already wouldn't hesitate to hunt with that combo just the way it is, but I think we can probably squeeze a little more out of them as well. That's kind of what I was hoping to see, is at least a solid starting point. If it was terrible, then we probably wouldn't have been able to do much with it, unfortunately, going off the history and track record of other blend shells like that. However, for whatever reason, Migra seems to really have their blend and stacked loads figured out pretty well. This is the same thing I was talking about earlier in the beginning of the video with their steel waterfowl stuff, with the blend shells and stacked loads and stuff like that they offer. Those have shown to be some pretty nice performers. So obviously they have some sort of combination figured out that a lot of other companies out there just struggle with when it comes to blend and stacked loads. So this is a good starting point. It's not perfect, but it is more than usable, and we can work with that for sure. So I'm definitely happy with our starting point. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these new Migra Hybrid shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is that a pattern or a combo you would hunt with? Or would you prefer to see it a little bit more broad in than what that gave us? Or is that kind of pattern exactly what you're looking for? I know blend shells like this and the mid price aren't really for everybody. Some people like them, some people don't. But what are your opinions about them? And what other choke combos do you want to see us run these shells through? A little tighter choke. I do have a choke or two that's a little more open as well we might be able to try. But let me know what you guys want to see down below. But with that being said, I've got some more tests to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.